Hello, this is James Johnson, and I'm back with another, a kind of different video. This is going to be my top 10 MMORPGs of all time. And coming in at number 10 is EVE Online. EVE Online is kind of been carrying the mantle of the sandbox for quite a long period of time, since the destruction of the sandbox at the hand of the dreaded World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft being one of the most successful theme park-oriented MMORPGs of all time that has pretty much completely destroyed the sandbox genre of the MMORPG. And as such, EVE Online has been one of the few sandbox-oriented MMORPGs to actually stand up on its own during a very long period of theme park dictated gameplay. I find that EVE Online does suffer from a lot of repetitive tasks, a lot of mining and gate hopping and gate camping, but otherwise it is a fairly decent open world sandbox with a lot of very fun and interesting things to do, from exploring wormholes to the PvP, which is probably the hallmark of EVE Online. Anyone who has followed EVE Online for any period of time knows that there are some great amounts of destruction that happen inside of the world of EVE when some of the bigger corporations decide it's time to go to war and to blow each other into Kingdom Come, thus annihilating tons of ISK and lots of hard work that goes up in flames in a very short amount of time. EVE Online has been a staple of the MMORPG genre for some period. And while it is a great game, it is only going to come in at the 10th place position here on my list today. So, you guys are probably wondering what's going to be coming in at 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Well, I'm going to try not to ruin the surprise, but I will tell you that World of Warcraft will not be on this list. World of Warcraft I hold as being, a fine game in its own right, but I do have a certain amount of disdain towards the title because of the lasting issue that it's had with not allowing the genre to basically locking the genre into 15 years of horrible theme park WoW clones. So next on our list is number 9, Pirates of the Burning Sea. Now this was a swashbuckling adventure that I very fondly remember taking part in. It went very well until Sony got their hands on the Pirates of the Burning Sea. Pirates of the Burning Sea is, as the name implies, a sailing adventure. It is a lot like the current game known as Naval Action, it's probably better to say Naval Action is a lot like Pirates of the Burning Sea. However, Naval Action didn't follow enough in the footsteps of Pirates of the Burning Sea, and I think Naval Action has ultimately gone from being a game with a whole ton of potential to really going downhill fast. However, Pirates of the Burning Sea will always be close to my heart. I spent countless hours in this particular MMORPG, and I had tons of fun in it. The PvP was really good. It was really fair. Some of the port battles were just immensely amazing. The scope, the organization that went into it, and just this was kind of a game that was ahead of its time in a lot of ways. It did have a very nice economy system in it. It could be very complex in its economy, especially crafting of ships, which obviously would be one of the most important things that you would do in a game that revolves around ship and ship-based combat. However, one of the things that really stood out in Pirates of the Burning Sea, even as a sandbox-oriented game, was inside of its ports, the quests and the questing systems that you would come across. It had some of the best questing I have ever done in an MMORPG, and I'm not really a questing-oriented guy. I prefer open world content to quests, but if quests are done right, they can be quite enjoyable. And Pirates of the Burning Sea did quests right. Pirates of the Burning Sea was also an incredibly beautiful game to play. And if you never got a chance to play this title, well, I'm sorry. I think it is still kind of possibly running. I know Sony has kind of been, well, from last I knew, was kind of running it into the ground. But if it is still functioning and out there, I haven't actually checked, but it wouldn't be a bad game to give a try if it's still got the servers open. Like I said, the questing content, the single player content within it is good enough, even if the multiplayer content is no longer there. In its heyday, it had some of the best multiplayer PvP action that you could find in a game, and some of the best economy action, some of the best crafting action. This was a game that appealed to the masses, and it appealed to all the different various factions that an MMORPG needs to appeal to. It needs to appeal to all types. With that being said, here is the newest rendition to the MMORPG genre. It's one that I'm very, very excited about. This is Boundless, and Boundless is number 8 on my list of greatest MMORPGs of all time. In fact, this one just released. So if there is a game on my list that you can take part in today, it is this one. And I would highly suggest going out and finding Boundless, because Boundless has taken one of the greatest games of all time, Minecraft, and has mixed it with one of my favorite genres, the MMORPG genre, to create a hybrid of the two that is just immensely amazing. Boundless has within it an incredible economy. An economy so good that it blows EVE Online's economy out of the water as far as I'm concerned. It has shop stands, and these shop stands, they take me back to the glorious old days of vendors that you would find in games like Star Wars Galaxies and Ultima Online. So, Boundless has got the economy going on. It's got the creativity of Minecraft. And when you combine all of that, the sky is really the limit. It is boundless for what this title can do. There is, however, no PvP. This is a PvE only game. So you're not, if you're a PvPer, you're not really going to get your fix here for that. But for the type of game that it is, that's understandable. I cannot say enough good things about Boundless. Some people say it's a little on the expensive side. I say they're crazy. This is a one-time buy MMORPG, which means I think it's $40 that you're spending to walk into the game. You don't have to spend another dollar again. There's no subscription fee. There is a Gleam Club, which is basically cosmetics. So that there are cosmetics that are for sale to further monetize on the game. But other than that, this game has gone to great strides to avoid any type of pay-to-win possibility. And I was very proud of that and happy the direction the developers took. I was one of the proud alpha and beta testers of this game, and the developers, they listened to us and our concerns to what could be pay to win, and they took great strides to make sure that that was not inside of this game. So if you're looking for an MMORPG that's also a voxel builder like Minecraft that has done things right, well, look no further. Boundless is the game for you, and I strongly suggest giving it a try. In so much as I'm telling you, this is going to be one of the great games of all time. Yeah. What else is there to say about Boundless? Coming in at number 7, we have the legendary Worm Online. Wait, legendary Worm Online? What am I talking about? Everyone's kind of like, huh? What is this game? So if you've heard of Worm Online, well, congratulations. If you've played Worm Online, well, you're a special type of person. You're a person right after my own heart. As a longtime Worm Online player myself, I know what this game is. This game is a game that can make the Korean MMO grind look like easy mode. Worm Online is maybe the most difficult MMORPG that has ever been released of all time. There is no game quite like Worm Online. It is very, very, very grindy, and the graphics are a little on the lower end. However, it does a lot of things right, and that's why it's sitting here at the number 7 spot. If there is a game that you can put your you can put your footprint on in the world and create the world and shape the world and terraform the world to what you want it to be, it's Worm Online. Worm Online is so shapeable. It's like a living, breathing world inside of a game. And it does everything that a great MMORPG needs to do. It separates the sheep, the PvE players, and the killers, and the creative people, and the economic people so well, and so simply, by just having this vast landscape. If you want to travel to the enemy's provinces, you have to get on a boat, and you have to travel an hour in a boat to get to the enemy's provinces. So, raids are not something that happen regularly, but they do happen enough to keep a certain amount of danger needed to make the PvE person stay on his toes, to create a world where there's always some semblance of danger, if not just from the monsters that run around, that are everywhere that could kill you, from the giant spiders to the bears to trolls and even dragons. The Worm Online universe is a dangerous place to live, but it is a very rewarding place to live, And to build something in Worm Online, to build something great in Worm Online, really brings with it a huge amount of pride. You can look back at what you did, and you're like, I left that mark on this universe. This is what I did. And it makes you feel like you've accomplished something. Worm Online is a very rewarding game in so many aspects, in so many ways. Even character development, to be able to win a fight against somebody, well, that's because you're better than that person, and that's because you're better at that person because you've worked hard to be better than that person. The best fighters in this game are the fighters that deserve to be known as the best fighters. Anyway, that's Worm Online. I strongly suggest checking it out. Number 6 on our list is a now extinct game known as Darkfall Online. Some of you are saying right now, extinct? No, it's not. I play it right now, or this game does exist. What do you mean? No. That's a different Darkfall. That's Darkfall 2, which is a shadow of its former self. The original Darkfall was maybe one of the first great implementations of RVR, race versus race. Darkfall had a lot of, I don't want to say inspiration, but it had in some ways a lot in kin to Dark Age of Camelot, in that it's a PvP oriented game, but it wasn't a PvP free-for-all. You had your own faction, which, they were your brethren, your kin, and it was the evil dwarves, or the awful orcs, or whoever they might be that were not necessarily part of your kin. However, that didn't mean that races couldn't be friends either. Darkfall had a wonderful political landscape that allowed for not only race versus race, but guild versus guild. And it may have been one of the best political PvP-oriented games of all time. It wasn't the best, and we'll talk about that game a little bit later on, as far as political PvP games. But Darkfall is up there. It's number 6 on this list, and it's number 6 on this list for a reason. Because it was a great game and most great sandbox games, and you're going to notice that a lot of these games that I've gone through, most all of them, have been sandboxes. And this is no exception. So you could play the key hallmark to a good game, a good MMORPG, is the ability to play multiple play styles, not just PvP, but as a crafter, or as a seller, or as a merchant. And you could play all of those things inside of Darkfall. Darkfall had a vendor system that you could sell to people. Darkfall had a very robust crafting system. Darkfall had the ability to make towns. Darkfall had a lot going to it for it that made it a great game. But the second version, the new version of it that is out now, is far more like World of Warcraft than Darkfall. Darkfall, the original Darkfall, was true to its name. Not true to its name, but it was a sandbox. The new Darkfall is a theme park. You're going to find that I'm not a fan of theme parks. I'm a fan of sandboxes. And the original Darkfall was one of the best. Partially because we only got so many sandboxes to play in. Most of the MMORPGs that released were, for the past 15 years, have been theme parks. So, to an extent, we haven't had a lot of options. Number 5 on my list is Atlantica Online. This is the only Korean-based MMO that shows up on my list. But there's a good reason that it does show up on my list. Atlantica Online, when it came out, it was different. It was very different from other MMORPGs. It pushed its new content into a genre that vastly needed new things. In fact, the genre still needs new things, but the genre is only now starting to get new things. Atlantica Online brought new things, while there wasn't a lot of new things being brought to the genre. In Atlantica Online, you play almost like a party. You could have up to 9 different people within your party, and you could spot people in and out of your party, making it a very unique playstyle. Though the questing and the fighting could be a little linear-ish, it was still sandboxy enough that it didn't feel like a theme park. Although it definitely has a lot more theme park elements in it than a lot of the other games on my list to date. However, it did so many things right, and it had so much more within it that were additional mini games within the game. Atlantica Online had maybe one of the best gambling systems I've ever seen inside of an MMORPG. And I think MMORPGs are only as good as the mini games that are inside of them. The better you make the mini games inside of an MMORPG, the more games that are inside of the game, really the more the title shines. And Atlantica Online had, wow, I used to wake up at night just so that I could bet on the fights that would take place in an Atlantica Online. It might seem strange, but it was very addictive. Also, Atlantica Online, at least in the beginning, had some really good PvP elements until they kind of, well, they neutered them. King's Justice, which was an ability that was for the leaders of towns, and there weren't that many towns, and there weren't that many kings. But kings could pass justice on a player, basically allowing them to attack and or kill a person. And they could only do that up to like 3 times a week or something. So it wasn't something that happened all the time, but having King's Justice passed upon you was something that was neutered. It was something that was taken out. It was PvP that wasn't people complained that they didn't agree to the PvP. And and they also in KJs or in PvP in general in that game, if you won something, you would take a random piece of equipment from the other person that you beat. And these were good systems. I believe in risk versus reward within a video game, and I believe that PvP has a place inside of an MMORPG genre. I think that crafting, economy, PvE, and PvP are all vital for any good video game to be successful. And in order for that world to be successful, you need to have all elements inside of the game. At number 4, that brings up RuneScape. RuneScape is a great MMORPG. It was, for a long time, the only sandbox that was really keeping the sandbox genre afloat. RuneScape was kind of holding the torch, if you will. It was the descendant of Ultima Online and Star Wars Galaxies. and it kind of held the mantle of the sandbox till EVE Online helped to add some more weight to the sandbox genre, which has been a genre that has suffered, again, because of the success of the Goliath that is World of Warcraft. Theme parks have had a far larger percentage of the market base within the MMORPG genre. So with that being said, RuneScape is one of the elder kings, the elder statesmen, and it did so many things right in the period of time that it was in its heyday. I've put in an immense number of hours inside of RuneScape, in part because there was nothing else to play. It was the only sandbox really that was out there, but even with that being said, RuneScape was a really good game. It did many things right, with the exception of the horrible auction house. I despise auction houses inside of video games. I think they're a lazy way to deal with the economy inside of a game. And if there was one thing that RuneScape suffered, it was the auction house. RuneScape would have been so much better if it had a vendor-based system. But alas, it did not. But even with that being said, RuneScape is a legend within the MMORPG community, and thus it sits at the number 4 spot on this list for good reason. So, as you probably noticed at this point in time, pretty much every game I have listed has been a sandbox or sandbox-esque, with Atlantica Online being the most not quite sandbox of the list. And that trend, that's not going to stop. In fact, this entire list is going to be sandboxes, which means, as I've already said, World of Warcraft is not going to make this list. And another notable title that's not going to make this list is the venerable EverQuest. But what is going to make this list at the number 3 spot is Shadowbane. Remember I said earlier that there was a political PvP game that was better than Darkfall? Shadowbane is that political PvP game that has never really been... nothing has really gone above and beyond it. Some might say that Dark Age of Camelot has. But I will tell you that Shadowbane is the king of political intrigue, of drama, of PvP. There is no game that has, no MMORPG that has released that has been so cutthroat, so brutal, so wonderfully no holds barred. And I miss this game. In Shadowbane, I'm one of the few people, I think, that has lost Shadowbane 3 times. And I'm proud to admit the fact that I lost Shadowbane 3 times. During my run in Shadowbane, I was typically the guild leader of one of the primary guilds of the smaller Zerg. And the smaller Zerg would eventually always end up getting overrun by the larger Zerg. I like to play on the underdog side, if you will. And it was usually because my guilds were usually the most powerful guilds within the smaller Zerg. Our towns would usually end up to be the last ones to fall. And thus, when my town would fall, like Athens and Athens was one of them. I don't remember the names of all of my towns at this point anymore, because Shadowbane was a few years ago. The map would end up getting declared won, and a new server would come out. And so yeah, I literally lost Shadowbane 3 different occasions, but it still makes me love this game. It was great that I could lose it. It was great that there was a winner. It was great that there was this political intrigue, that you could side with the underdogs. Everything about Shadowbane was so good, even the combat. The combat was just amazing. A stealth system within Shadowbane still may be the best stealth system that has ever been realized within an MMORPG. Some of the games some of the fights did get a bit frame ratey. I always get a laugh when people talk about frame rate these days, and I think back to balling up on the healer in Shadowbane in some of the big Zerg warfares that we had, where you saw like 1 frame a minute, and thinking to myself, yeah, you guys don't know what frame rate is. I mean, games today are just a world different than what they were in the past, and even with the performance issues that Shadowbane suffered with, you as a player, you still loved it. You still love the game because of what it brought, and very few games have brought what it has brought. I know Crowfall is attempting to bring back the Age of Shadowbane in a way, but I have to admit, I don't have a lot of faith in Crowfall. I've been doing some of the alpha beta in Crowfall, and it just doesn't feel right as of yet, but I still have my fingers crossed. Now, at number 2, the number 2 position of greatest MMORPGs of all time is Star Wars Galaxies. Star Wars Galaxies is an interesting story in the MMORPG universe. With an IP as strong as Star Wars, everyone thought this would be the MMO that would rule them all. But then World of Warcraft came along. And many would argue that the Star Wars IP is better, including me. But World of Warcraft, it wasn't an IP issue. It didn't have to do with IP. It has to do with there is a mismatch between the theme park and sandbox communities within the MMORPG genre. I will admit that. I am in the minority in the sandbox genre. But the minority of the sandbox genre is not as big of a disparity as what people seem to think it is. And in part, they think this because of the success that World of Warcraft had when it released versus Star Wars Galaxies, being the reigning sandbox and huge IP. Star Wars only had X number of subscriptions compared to the World of Warcraft, which had so many more. And I would say that there's a reason behind that, and that would be Ultima Online and Shadowbane and the other sandboxes, Runescape, that were available at that time period. World of Warcraft, its theme park that came before it was EverQuest, and EverQuest was pretty much dead by that point, and needed the theme park people needed a new place to go, and that was World of Warcraft. The sandbox people, we were split up. We had Ultima Online, we had RuneScape, we had Shadowbane, we had Star Wars Galaxies. We had many hats to hang our head. That was the golden age of sandboxes. And then World of Warcraft came along and was able to rally this huge player base of people who like theme parks. I think the normal separation between MMORPG players is 60-40. 60 being theme parks, 40 being sandbox. But when 40% is divided up between multiple titles and 60% has it all in one, of course World of Warcraft was the reigning king at that point in time. Anyway, I'm getting so sidetracked here. Star Wars Galaxies had the greatest crafting system of all time. There was no game that I've ever played that has ever come close to Star Wars Galaxies' complexity in its crafting. The most beautiful resource system ever, where resources changed every week. You could have one version of copper one week, a different version of copper the next week, a third version of copper the week after that, which then enhanced the resource system immensely. Star Wars Galaxies is a game that went from great to a flop, all in the blink of an eye, all to try to compete with World of Warcraft. It's another story for another time. But for now, let's talk about the number one, the greatest MMORPG to ever release, and that's Richard Garriott's brainchild, Ultima Online. Ultima Online, still to this day, Ultima Online kicks the butt of any MMORPG that has come since. Even Shroud of the Avatar, the new MMORPG released by Richard Garriott, it can't get out of the shadow of Ultima Online. The taming in Shroud of the Avatar is nothing compared to Ultima Online. The fishing is non-existent compared to Ultima Online. All of the aspects within Shroud of the Avatar that could be great are only marginally as good as what Ultima Online was. And that's sad. That really is sad. Ultima Online, it should be the recipe to what somebody needs to copy to make a great sandbox MMORPG. I've been waiting years for someone to take the recipe from Ultima Online and realize it into a new graphical MMORPG for the ages, for the sandbox people, for us 40% of the MMORPG genre that have had lackluster titles to work with. Somebody, please, realize the sandbox genre is stronger than what it is, and realize that Ultima Online was something that just has not been recreated. Some smart developer out there, put your money into recreating an Ultima Online the way it should be. And no, I'm not talking Legends of Aria. I know Legends of Aria says they want to be the next Ultima Online. And there is a shard, if you will, within Legends of Aria that does a really good job of trying to recreate Ultima Online within side of Legends of Aria. And then I give it a lot of thumbs up. But we don't need to be technologically backwards to recreate the greatness that Ultima Online is. We can step forward in technology, be a more complex, more graphically oriented, neater game. We don't have to stay isometric just because Ultima Online was. That doesn't mean that you can't make an isometric recreation of Ultima Online. I'm more than willing to play it because graphics are not that important. If the content is there, I'm going to play it. I'm just saying that while I'm excited for Legends of Aria, you're just not setting the bar high enough, guys. And while you have good intentions, you're not going to be the next coming of Ultima Online. So with that being said, this has been my top 10 of the greatest MMORPGs of all time. So, there's number 10 again, EVE Online. We're seeing it on the screen. I really hope that going forward in the future from 2018, we see more sandboxes being released. We've had a couple that have been coming down the pike. We've had Black Desert Online, which, it's alright. We've got Shroud of the Avatar from Richard Garriott, which I really expected to be better than what it was, but he's put so much RMT into it and blocking the housing behind paywalls that, well, it's sad. But I do have a lot of hope, a lot of faith in a couple of upcoming titles, and I'd just like to mention them today. Chronicles of Illyria is a game I'm very excited about. It's something that I think is going to transcend the genre of the MMORPG and make the MMORPG genre something even better than the genre is. I think Chronicles of Illyria is the type of game that we've been waiting for a long time. Though, if it will ever be realized, I'm not there yet. I'm on the hype train. I'm about 60% there. I think it could be a reality, but there's still a lot that makes me wonder if the game will ever release. But both of my fingers are crossed and my toes are crossed. I hope to see that game come to fruition. But the one I think will be released, and I'm a little skeptical on, is Ashes of Creation. And the reason I'm skeptical on it is because there's so many EverQuest developers that are involved with Ashes of Creation. But what I'm excited about it is it's supposed to be getting back to old school MMORPG values. It's going to be bringing back a subscription, which is wonderful. I mean, there's so many things Ashes of Creation can do to make the genre better. And I have a lot of hope that the guys at Ashes of Creation at least make the best theme park MMORPG to release since World of Warcraft. I just don't think it's going to be a sandbox because of everything points to theme park. So I'm accepting of that, but I think we're finally going to see one that's good. That's not just a copy of World of Warcraft. I think we're going to finally see a new theme park that's going to be like, wow, that's really a good game. Which I will admit, I said that about World of Warcraft. I played World of Warcraft for a couple of years, and I love sandparks. That's how good World of Warcraft was it deserved to be played. If Ashes of Creation is a game like that deserves to be played, even though it's a theme park, I will play it. And I'll be excited about it and happy about it. But most of the theme park crap that's come out since World of Warcraft has just been cloned, regurgitated theme park crap that hasn't been worth playing. And I hope that Ashes of Creation changes that. Anyway, this has been my top 10 on the best MMORPGs of all time. And we'll just recap. At 10 was EVE Online. At 9, Pirates of the Burning Sea. At 8, brand new game just released, Boundless. Be sure to check it out. At 7, Worm Online. Worm Online is still out. You can still play it today. It's a good game. Go check it out. Though it is maybe the grindiest game to ever exist. Number 6, Darkfall, which doesn't exist anymore. Not in the number 6 version I'm talking about. There's a new version that is meh. There's the number 5 at Atlantica Online, which does still exist. It's worth checking out. Maybe the best Korean MMORPG I've ever played. Number 4, RuneScape. I think you can still play it. It's maybe adapted through the years, but you know, it's worth a try. Number 3, Shadowbane. I think Shadowbane has closed up the doors. Number 2, Star Wars Galaxies. That one has closed up the doors, but I think there are some private emulators out there that you can play. And Ultima Online is sort of still running in a very bastardized form than what it used to be back in 1997, 98, and 99. So Ultima Online I don't think has aged gracefully. But if you can find some of the older UOR type private shards, it's still pretty fun to play. And definitely worth checking out if you've never played Ultima Online and you want to know what all the hype's about. But anyway, that's my top 10. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If so, please leave a like. And this is a very passionate topic for me, so I hope you understand that I have a lot of personal bias here, a lot of hardcore feelings about this. And if your favorite MMORPG is not on this list, likely because it's a theme park oriented MMORPG that's probably been released recently, like say, I don't know, Elder Scrolls or Guild 2 or any of those guys, then you know, I'm sorry, they're just not really my cup of tea. The one honorable mention that maybe should have made this list that I think is a really damn good MMORPG is Dark Age of Camelot. Dark Age of Camelot is a game that could fit in this list somewhere. And if you're going to bring up Dark Age of Camelot, I kind of agree with you. But with that being said, again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, peace.